Hey guys, I'm gonna keep this short because short videos get clicked more and are therefore more effective at spreading information as it goes. But for those of you that don't know, either because you're new or because you just haven't really paid attention before, there's a particular way this channel works. On most days, not counting the weekend days, which my quote-unquote weekend is Wednesday and Sunday, was when I upload multiplayer videos. But all the other days, I have 4 time slots. 11 a.m. Pacific time is RPG games, or things that are close enough at least. Noon is the sort of alternating thing between modern and classic AA and AAA games. 1 p.m. is the Patreon slot, which we'll get into in a minute because that's the point of this video. And 2 p.m. is alternating between puzzle and indie, which of course puzzle games are often indie too, but specifically puzzle as one of those two things, and then general indie for the other thing. Just trying to keep the variety going and all that. But the big wild card slot is the 1 p.m. slot because that's Patreon selected, so it is entirely up to the audience what game I'm playing in that time slot. I finished Skyward Sword, I have edited it, and I have uploaded it, and I know when the finale is, so I can talk about the schedule here and plan accordingly, and that's what we're doing right now. But first of all, how does the actual selection process work? So first of all, I do not pick the list of games, and I do not vote on the list of games. Sometimes people think that they have opinions about my choices in this process, and it's like, no, I don't have choices in this process. All games are fucking like on the table as long as I don't there's not some really specific reason I can't do it, like it's banned everywhere, or like something that's unless playable, or like is a game about like probably a rock band, like a literal licensed music game that I can't do anything but I can't even really use and stuff like that. But there's basically nothing that's banned. Like I've never really had to be like, not that game, like ever, I think. But anyway, here is our tiers. So we have the 1, 15, and 25. 25 is not the most important thing to get into. It's just a premium tier for people that choose to support me on that level. There isn't really a reward besides having yet another different labeling system in the credits. So that's when you see people with different colors. Those are premium tiers, but they don't have additional features necessarily. So we have the main 2 tiers are the $1 tier and the $15 tier. We'll get to the $15 tier first just because it chronologically comes first. So what the $15 tier does is that it gets, they nominate the games. And so what I do is when it's the nomination day, which we'll get to the schedule of that in a moment, I send a message to everybody in this tier, and then they can fill out this form that I've sent them and just nominate any game. Basically, they just pick a video game. You want to be really specific, like for example Doom. You want to be really clear about whether you mean the one from the 90s or if you mean the one from 2016, for example. That's a nice safe example because it's one we've already done before. But like sometimes multiple games have literally the same title and it's really unhelpful. So you want to be as specific as possible about what game you mean if there is any chance of it being unclear which game you're referring to. They also get their own different colored name in the credits. So if you ever looked at the credits before, like the purple and the gold or orange, I guess, are the premium tiers, and then these nominating people, those are the yellow names that you see in the credits. But once the day comes up for nominations, everyone gets their stuff in. I give people about 48 hours to get their nominations in because I want to make sure that people don't miss out just because they're busy that day. Although, you know, within reason, we can't like wait around for a week until every single person gets their message in. But I think 48 hours is a nice squishy time window. Then we get to the voting supporters, which is 2 days later. They also get a message in their DMs. Their private messages that allows them to fill out a much more complicated form, which this is where they get to vote on all of the games that were nominated by the nominating supporters. The nominating supporters and the premium supporters, and they also get to vote. Specifically, the premium people also get to nominate with the nominating people, and everybody gets to vote unless they specifically choose no reward when they're signing up. So each tier has all of the features of all of the lower tiers in each of these cases. But in the vote, you get to click every single game that you would like to see me play, and you don't have to do worry about just picking one and having like this game spoil the votes for that game and so on. You can just do a select all that apply and check as many as you want to see, so you don't have to worry about the vote being diluted and all that. And you just send that in, and that's also got a 48-hour time window where you get to fill that in. then I play that game. I acquire that game. I play that game. Every now and then it's a game that's a little harder to acquire, so we have to delay it for a few days while I acquire said game. But generally speaking, that's just how it works. $15 people get to nominate, $1 people get to, and everybody else too gets to vote, and then you get to have your little bit of say in what game gets played next. And we've been doing this for years now. So yeah, it's a pretty big thing. It's if you just count normal weekdays or whatever, it's like 25% ish or 20% of my overall schedule is just straight up decided by the audience with no real input from me. And it's kind of a win-win because you guys get to get exactly what the majority, or like the most of you want to see at the given time on the channel, and I get to know what the hell you guys want to see on the channel. So it's kind of it works out for everybody really, and it's been a neat system. It's worked pretty well. There's things I could probably tweak here and there, but overall I'm pretty happy with it. And it's really that simple. You just sign up on this Patreon, link in the description. Patreon.com/SebastianSB, which is the URL that I have for like everything, even though it's confusing and weird because it's like some out-of-date German name from German class, and I'm stuck with an old stupid username that doesn't make sense on all of my profiles, but at least I'm consistent, so you only have to learn it once. And that's where we go. The main thing to look out for is that when you sign up, do not pick no reward. And if you enter a custom amount, make sure you're still picking what tier you want that custom amount to apply to, because every now and then people customize their amount or whatever, but then they don't select a tier correctly. So even if they're technically pledging the amount for a tier, they pledge no reward. And I kind of just take you at your word and assume that you signed up correctly and you meant that, because that's also an option. If you want to support the channel but you don't want any of these notifications and messages, and you don't want to be involved in the vote, and you don't want to be in the credits, I think is the biggest thing for some people, is they want to support but they don't want to be listed or something, then you can just pledge no reward, and then what happens is you just are subscribed to the channel, and I think you still get access to the public posts that I make, because I set the privacy level of those as just being Patreon only, usually patron only, as opposed to usually like any particular tier necessarily. So I think everyone has access to those, but you get access to the backlog of about 100 episodes of the Patreon Q&A, which is now over because I went ahead and axed that to start the podcast, which we've been doing for 3 months now, because I felt like it was kind of doing like 100 episodes is probably enough for a Q&A. Might come back in the future, might not, but that's the backlog of all that is accessible if you sign up for any amount on the Patreon. And yeah, you get charged monthly. You do not get charged on sign up. You get charged at the beginning of each month. And that's how this channel works, because like this is how I went full time in the first place, is YouTube did not provide anywhere near enough to be going this way and quitting my job and all that. So like this is how the meat is made, I guess. And then it gives you access to some other stuff like, yeah, so here's the schedule, by the way. So this isn't disorganized and already taking longer than it should. I'm very good at these things. But the nominations are going to be happening on January 17th. The vote is going to be happening on January 19th. It's usually about midday. There's not really like a scheduling mechanic for this kind of thing, so I largely just kind of get it done when I get it done. In particular, when I do the vote, I include like the trailers for all the games, and I spend a whole bunch of time editing the whole thing, so like that can take a bit, so it kind of just goes up when it goes up, but there's still about a 48-hour window to do each one, so it kind of works out, and I don't think it's ever really been an issue. Skyward Sword's finale will be on January 21st, and the next Patreon game that's selected via this process will be available on January 22nd if nothing goes wrong, unless something goes wrong. Hope nothing goes wrong. And here you can see like one of these behind the scenes. I call the series undeleted scenes, which is these like clips that happen where we're just kind of talking and there's just some banter. Usually in our multiplayer sessions, they're just kind of like some commentary that I feel like I could use this somewhere as content, but it's largely just an interruption of the video that it's in. Like if I include it here, then it's just like 5 minutes of us sitting at a menu and talking, like while setting up the stream or whatever. So like kind of making its own thing kind of works, because these are scenes that I would otherwise delete because they interrupt the flow of the video too much. But it's like, if you want them, here they are. And as you can see here, there's also additional votes that just kind of happen here and there whenever they're applicable. And like back in December, I had this vote where I made this infographic and crap, where I just tried to explain like, hey, how should Hades be handled? Should it be 30-minute episodes every day, or should it be like full run videos and then we space them out a bit and it's a little more complicated, but like people will figure it out. And so like that's where that choice was made. So if you want to be involved in little choices here and there, then that's also a thing that happens on my Patreon, because I figure like, hey, that's a good way to add a little more value to this whole thing in the spaces between each vote and nomination, because the voting and nomination process happens whenever I finish the current game that Patreon has selected. So that could be only 2 weeks, or it could be 3 or 4 months. It's hard to say. We had a vote about that, speaking of which, on the Patreon years ago. Specifically, Far Cry 4 was 2 months long for me to beat. So I had to do a vote midway through. It's like, because it used to be a monthly vote back then. I was like, okay, well, let's do a vote. Do I renew this series and like do a season 2 where I finish the rest of the playthrough in the second month? Or does this game get canceled and we vote on a new game? And I was getting increasingly uncomfortable with that like weight hanging over me of like, oh god, any Patreon series might get canceled, even though I'm a channel that likes finishing playthroughs and all that. So when Horizon Zero Dawn got voted for, I put up a vote of like, okay, hey guys, so seriously, like, how do you guys want to handle this? Should we just vote whenever the game finishes, or should we do this vote every month and risk every playthrough getting canceled that's longer than a month long? And not only was there a strong support for the idea of doing the when it's done approach to voting, people immediately had Morrowind, I think, be the next game, which was a very long Patreon series, and I guess people got exactly what they wanted. So that's the Patreon. It's how this is a living. It's how I was able to get like the index, which more of that's coming soon. I just wanted to fix some stuff about how I do it and so on. I also ordered prescription lenses for it, which is nice. And I think those just came in. So I'm looking forward to doing more index stuff. This kind of stuff is funded by the Patreon. And yeah, it's how I pay my rent. And I turn that back on you guys by letting you guys pick an entire playthrough at all times. So go down to the link in the description, patreon.com/SebastianSB, and you can pledge whatever amount you want to join in on that. And if you don't want to do that, that's fine, because all of these the Patreon selected series is always publicly available for free without any donation amount. You just don't get to be involved in the process for choosing what the game is. The only Patreon exclusive content is the old 100 episode Q&A, which I still need to do the episode 100 finale for, sorry. And then this new undeleted scenes thing, which doesn't really have a schedule. It's just when I have a backlog of little clips that I think I can put together into a video that's like 10 minutes long or so. I cobble that together and put that up, and it's kind of, you know, it's like a supply based thing where if the stuff is there to make it with, then that's when it gets made. If I have clips that I think are worth throwing in there, I know that. All right, thanks for watching like always, guys, and I'll see you next time, and I'll see what game comes next.